On this episode of the Star Trek Universe podcast, we do not seek Jamaharan, but we do recognize a giant Horgon in this episode of Star Trek Lower Decks, which we are reviewing right after the commercial we have no control over.
I kinda seek Jamaharan, if anybody's down. Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name's Matthew Carroll.
I am David C. Robertson.
Let's talk about Lower Decks, man.
Yeah, man.
What did you think of this episode 2?
I didn't laugh. Not once. I enjoyed it okay. It was fine. I probably spent the majority of the episode with a tiny smirk on my face. Like, I was just sort of like, yeah, all right. Klingon. Cool. Cool. Okay. Oh, neat. They have a Vendorian. Nice animated series reference. It's like a shape-shifting squid type of character, you know. Saw a Lurian. I'm like, oh, there's a little more in there running around. Cool. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't dislike it or anything. I enjoyed it. I liked Cyborg. I don't know his name.
I don't know. It's what is it? It's not Luther.
Rutherford,
that's it. I know it had a "other" in it.
Yeah, okay. So I thought it was funny that he could do pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And
it was also
good,
was like, there was a lot of good jokes. I laughed a lot. I don't know. I'm sorry that you did not. Yeah.
No, it's okay. I don't have to laugh all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you enjoyed it as a Star Trek thing, and that's cool. And all the references, and it is chock full of references. I liked the whatever the guy said about the prophets. As he like when he, I also just like I like the Star Trekification of really silly jokes. Like what was the Borg program called? Oh gosh, I should have written things down.
Oh, Smorgasbord.
Yes. Load program Smorgasbord. It's just really funny because that's like a joke we would make.
Yep.
And then, but in real life, and they're just making it on the show because why wouldn't they? They have the word smorgasbord, the Borg are a thing. Like why wouldn't they? You know, like I like it. They're definitely being a lot more broad as we discussed in the after the first episode. But like the jokes, for the most part, these people still like could exist in the Star Trek universe, and I really like. I don't know, man. I like it. It made me laugh a lot. I laughed. I'm trying to remember the line. I should have taken notes because there were a few lines that like really got me. It was mostly those just like really good delivery of certain lines. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I did a bad job this week. I got off work. I haven't been working because I'm a musician and COVID. Yeah. Tonight I had a show for the first time in a while. And so I did a show tonight and I just got off and like watched it and immediately casted. So I just didn't have as much time to take notes and stuff like I normally do.
Yeah. I felt like there should have been some joke I understood with Janeway Protocol. And I don't know what it is because I don't watch Voyager very much.
When they first said it, I was like, oh my gosh, are they about to make fun of Janeway's command? Like, that's what it seemed like.
That's what I was hoping. I was like,
oh my gosh, are they going to do that? That would be amazing and also really offensive to like 50% of Star Trek fans. So
50%? I don't think that's an accurate representation.
I do. Oh my gosh. Everyone I talk to, everyone that's just a little younger than us, Voyager's like the show they grew up on.
It's so weird, isn't it?
It is. It really is. Because and it just sucks because I listened to another Star Trek podcast this week and they were talking about Voyager and they were talking about how like I just really don't like talking to fans about Janeway because every time I do, they're just super sexist because they don't like her. And I was like, that's not why we don't like her.
No, that's not why we don't like her.
Nothing. It literally has nothing to do with her being a woman.
No, I like Captain Rachel Garrett like loads more than Janeway. And she was only the captain of the Enterprise C for like an episode.
There's lots of strong female characters in Star Trek that I really, really like. But Janeway... she's not my captain, you know, and for various reasons, and like
they are varied and many.
Infinite diversity and infinite combinations, you know. Anyway, and you know, it has been probably 15 years since I rewatched Voyager. I did rewatch it about, I don't know, maybe it was 10 years ago. I rewatched it 10 or 15 years ago, and I had the same sort of feelings, you know. I rewatched a good bit of it in preparation for I rewatched a good bit of the 7 and 9 episodes in preparation for Picard, and like, you know, some of the show isn't bad, but for the most part, like, I just didn't like the entire ethos of Voyager as a show. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about.
Nope.
Let's talk about Lower Decks. But yeah, that really got under my skin this week. Or else that podcast, they were like, basically said the only reason people don't like Janeway is because of she's a woman, and I was like, yeah,
that has nothing to do with it for me. I mean, I'm sure some of them are.
Yeah, oh, for sure. There are sexist fans. I'm sure there is. I have some sexual bias or sex-based biases myself. Like it happens, but like it's not the reason I don't like Janeway.
Oh my gosh, dude! Today in particular, I've seen so many. Not to get political or too political, but so many angry Trump supporters saying that Lower Decks is not Star Trek. Like, I don't know why I keep seeing it on my timeline, but I mean, I keep
Trump
blocking
supporters?
them.
Are they?
Oh no, because they have Trump 2020 on their avatar.
Right. You know, on most of my podcasts, I don't get very political, especially these ones where we talk about geeky things. Really, but man, I've been very upset about all this stuff. Anyway, let's talk about Lower Decks.
Yep.
We'll talk about that off the podcast, because I will. Oh my gosh, I'm very angry right now about some stuff that's going on in the fucking social media. Okay, let's talk about Lower Decks.
I'm obviously not very happy either. Man.
I really liked. So I like a lot of things. It made me laugh real hard, and then it annoyed me that he was speed walking, and then said Section 31 does it, because I was like, that made me. I burst out laughing at the idea of someone in universe being like, it's a Section 131 thing. How cool are they? And then I got annoyed because they're supposed to be a secret.
Yep, he said it, and I kind of looked at my wife and said, that's not how that's supposed to work.
Nope, I laughed really hard and then like immediately got annoyed at the fact that it's supposed to be a secret. And I mean, I guess this is whatever 15 years later, so sure, maybe not. Maybe it's not a secret now.
Yeah, maybe they like Mal Reynolds that shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe Julian like blew the whistle on the whole thing, and now
that's right.
It's so there's my headcanon. It's fine. My headcanon is securely in place, but like it just annoyed me because we had to headcanon it during Discovery too, because they were also not a secret in Discovery, even though they were clearly a secret in DS9. So
well, they were sort of a secret. Like they were like, oh, we've heard rumblings of something like this, but I thought it was a myth.
Right, exactly. So the fact that Discovery, they just knew about them and they were like having regular contact. We had this whole headcanon when we watched Discovery. We like came up with a headcanon that like maybe they weren't a secret and became a secret or something. Like they thought it was shut down.
Yeah, but you know, Discovery headcanon themselves.
Right.
By the end of of last season, they were just like, nothing ever happened.
They just like headcanon everything. What'd you think about this Klingon character, Kotor, what was his name?
Whatever I don't know his name. I thought it was fine. I think it's kind of funny that maybe it's not as prevalent as I imagine it is, but it seems like Star Trek really likes to be like, oh, you know what? This will be a good idea. How about we have like this big Klingon dude who likes to party with young, very not Klingon women who are just as rough and tumble as they are. I feel like it's like a real trope at this point in the franchise.
I mean, so Dax, is there more than Dax?
I can't think of any, but I feel like it's a thing that happens all the time.
Yeah, maybe. I think that's just a Dax thing. I think that's like, I agree that there is a similarity here between her and Dax. I don't know that we have any other
That's why I say examples. I feel like it's not, I can't really back it up. Because I can't think of another one.
I'm just saying a thing. I don't know if it's true. I hear you.
I prefaced it with lots of qualifiers about how I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, speaking of me not knowing what I'm talking about, you challenged me last week to come up with one thing in the original series that was more ridiculous than that creature sucking and blowing him in and out of its mouth.
Butthole mouth, yeah.
Yeah, the butthole mouth. I'm ashamed. I thought about it like an hour after we recorded. Spock's brain. Spock's brain is definitely more ridiculous than that.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair.
The entire episode is more ridiculous than anything in the rest of Star Trek canon, period.
But it's ridiculous. It's not as broad, I'd say. But yes, I agree. I agree it's more ridiculous. Like, that's for sure.
It's not as broad, but you know what? I was thinking about that butthole mouth creature, and I was like, that butthole mouth spider there. And I was like, you know what? I've probably done the same thing to like a pen cap. If someone just like keyed in during a dramatic moment in life, and then like suddenly I was just there in the background, like with a straw or a pen cap in my mouth, not realizing anybody was watching me or caring. Mm-hmm. Good Lord.
Right. All right. Oh man. Okay. I'll get you my favorite line of the episode. Rutherford on it. I really enjoyed his command section when he tried to be in the command tract.
Yes, that was fantastic.
And he failed miserably they were like, do an advanced simulation, and he failed. So like, all right, let's try that again. Let's do basic simulation. And then they were like,
all the children are dying.
The kindergarten on deck 6 is gone. And now the preschool on deck 7.
This has never happened before.
He says like so many dead children. So all of the children have been sucked into space.
I didn't laugh when I watched the episode, but for some reason you're laughing and it makes me want to laugh.
It was real good. Let's try another one on a ship with more children.
Yeah.
I like everyone's attitude in Starfleet. The idea that like everyone, I don't know, is just they're making it this like playful thing with the idea that everyone is so evolved. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But they're doing it in like sort of a playful way where they're like playing against the tropes of the grizzled old engineer who he has to tell that he's leaving engineering, and the guy's like, "Oh yeah, you're leaving, huh? Well, we really wish you well."
Yep.
That was great. And my favorite was the bear pack.
Oh, bear pack.
Oh, bears.
Yeah. I did almost laugh when they're like, "You'll never have to go inside of another Jeffries tube again." He's like staring at the Jeffries tube as it like shines and sparkles.
Yeah.
There's like longing for it.
There was a lot of really good jokes. Honestly, this felt more like Rick and Morty to me. Like the world, this felt like the world of Rick and Morty to me.
Yeah, I haven't quite felt that way on either episode. Like, I don't know. Like, there's a
missing element
to it.
There's a missing element, and I think that is the like psychology of Rick Sanchez and Morty. Like, I think they're very interesting as characters, and so far I don't think anyone on this show is as interesting as those characters.
Right. Well, I mean, Rick and Morty's also like 100 times funnier.
Yes, but most of that really great humor to me is when when it's okay, like the best comedians are truth tellers, right? Like when a comedian is really funny, it's because they're hitting on this like universal truth. And I think Rick and Morty is almost always playing with those universal truths, and they're willing to juxtapose utter ridiculous silliness with like really like intense existential truth, you know?
Yeah. Which would be great if this show did that for the Star Trek universe.
Absolutely. I would absolutely love that.
Because there is a lot of like funny hypocrisies in Starfleet and in the Federation and in Star Trek and its ethics and oh my God, like there are so many like Janeway-esque things and yes, I'm not gonna just pick on her. If you look at original series, if you look at Next Generation, Picard, Kirk, everybody has reactions and orders that contradict a whole other mission. Right. You're like, wait, but in this episode they did this. Why would they do this here? And that's kind of flagrant throughout the entire franchise because God knows you just can't keep track of it all.
Yeah. I do think they are trying to mess around the edges of that, and maybe we'll get there. I'm hopeful, I guess.
Yeah.
With what's her name? What's the main character's name? The female character?
I'm not there yet, man.
Madeline,
I don't know these people.
Mariner.
Mariner.
I did it. Mariner.
Swanson. Samsonite.
Thank you very much for pointing out how much I am like Lloyd Christmas.
Samsonite. I was way off.
Oh man. Okay. It's very fun. Mariner is that character who can question Starfleet in that way. Like she is both respecting who. See, I don't know the other main character's name either.
Boimler.
Boimler, yeah. She's both respecting who Boimler is. She says, you are Starfleet. Last episode, she decided to make him her trainee or whatever, her mentee. Right. And that I think that's important.
Protege.
Yeah. No, I don't think they ever say that. They say that she's her mentor. I'm going to mentor the heck out of you or whatever.
Yeah, but that still would make him a protege.
Right. Or, yeah. Anyway, that like, so she clearly has a respect for the like sort of like character and sacrifice of a Starfleet officer, and like the kind of guy he is, the sort of purity of heart that he has, like that it's an important role that he plays. But she also is clearly like questioning Starfleet, and I don't think we've gotten there yet, but I could kind of see like that sort of grizzled her willing to break the rules, being sort of the Rick of this show and him being sort of the Morty. Their affects are very different. It's not but like just in the idea of questioning the bigger things in Starfleet, I could see them sort of aligning for those roles. I don't think they're doing it yet, but there's a possibility there.
They're sowing those seeds because the first episode she's helping those farmers out because Starfleet gets caught up in the bureaucracy of it all, and the farmers need help now.
Right.
She's the Kirk. She's breaking the rules to do the right thing. This is what Kirk has generally been. Picard has been from time to time, and definitely what Sisko was, and what they thought Michael Burnham was supposed to be doing in Discovery, I think, when they wrote that first episode. But it feels like she's self-aware and that she's like, dude, I keep getting knocked down in promotions because I do these things, but Starfleet needs this kind of person just as much as it needs you.
Interesting. I don't know that she thinks Starfleet needs that kind of person. I think to some degree she's given up on being sort of a successful Starfleet officer, and she's just being who she is, regardless of what Starfleet is. But yeah, I think all that's interesting. But here's my fear about this show is it'll just kind of keep being broad comedy in the world of Star Trek, which is fun. But like when I think about Rick and Morty and the kind of show that is, it is both one of the funniest shows I've ever seen, and it is also the most self-analytical of the sci-fi genre. You know what I mean? Like that's part of the humor and part of the style of the show is it is deconstructing science fiction and fantasy to a like intense degree where it's in many ways it's the most hilarious show and the most prescient. You know what I mean? Like it's got this like deep knowledge and like it analyzes the genre in a way that is incredibly valuable and cool. And I kind of fear that this will never get there. It'll just keep trying to be funny without ever really letting itself. Right now, the plots of these two episodes have felt like the plots of children's shows, while including the humor that's trying to like align with like a Rick and Morty silliness, you know?
You know, and I've always hated this argument, but because I've heard it for so many years, but I'm going to make it now because it's relevant. Star Trek shows always take a season or two to get their feet under them, you know?
Yeah. Sure.
Figure out what they are.
Every show does. That doesn't mean we can't judge it on its merits right now.
Right.
We're also saying, like, we see seeds.
And by this measure, I don't think they're nearly as bad as some of the fan favorite shows. A couple of first episodes.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, this is probably better than... Okay, first episode of Yeah, this is probably better than the first two episodes of TNG.
I mean, yeah.
I like the counterfire point, but...
I do too. I mean, I've got a lot of nostalgic bullshit wrapped up in it, a lot of emotion, so, like, I don't want to say that, but, you know, yeah, probably is better.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting the way that Boimler treated the Ferengi and offensive. The way that Boimler treated the Ferengi, he like treated him like a dog. He was like, get, kicking at him.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, that is some racist shit, Boimler.
Yeah. And that's something that's been interesting. And I feel like it's somewhat, I feel like it's purposeful, because one of the things they've done is they've made a distinction between like the very highbrow, progressive, evolved human being. They've shown them like that when in their official capacities, but then like when they're not necessarily on duty, they kind of devolve into jackasses.
Right.
It's just, it seems like that's what they're doing a little bit on the show. I mean, we had, and in crisis mode, we had the doctor say, "Hey, green girl," which that's not okay. That was the first episode. Now we've got, you know, in a stressful situation, he's like, look, he's even doing the Ferengi hand thing. Look at that, blah, blah.
She thought he was a whatever. I forget what she said.
Bolian.
She thought he was a Bolin. He was even doing the hand thing. It's like, wow, that really does seem like offensive in a way that if you're really Starfleet, you wouldn't be. And
then, of course, the reveal that we knew was coming is that he didn't act like that at all. He was like basically acting like a Ferengi criminal or something, or like Ferengis we've seen before on the shows. And he's actually like, he's got like a monocle and shit. And he's like, oh, ha ha ha, you know.
It was pretty great.
I feel like the show was making like, it was in this episode and has been low-key making a point about
the Federations versus the humans of the situation.
The hypocrisy of the Federation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
The hypocrisy of Starfleet. The fact that the inherent racism that still exists, like within any group of people. Like, you could throw a whole bunch of races together and put them in a group and call them a group. But if someone outside of that group is there and shows up, they're going to be like, hey, that's the person that does that shit. Like, that's their kind. Like, it's still the other. No matter how many, you know, how diversified you are, you're still going to find an other, which I think is a pretty important statement to be saying.
Right. It is challenging to the ideals that we're supposed to believe about the Federation, which I do, as much as I want Federation to be able to wrestle with these ideas,
Yeah.
but I also want them to maintain some of that hopefulness that we will get past the basic petty racism and shit.
But that's the thing, and that's one of those things that always gnaws at me. Like, Star Trek fans have a serious emotional hang-up, and I think an intellectual hang-up when it comes to that issue, because they're always complaining about anything new, like, Starfleet would never do this. Bullshit. Starfleet would always do this. Starfleet does this in every series. There's always a corrupt admiral. There's always a stupid command that comes from on up that, hey, wonderful, our captain, the captain we're following, thank God, or the great bird of the galaxy, or, whatever, the core of humanity, whatever you want to say. But thankfully, the captain we're following is like, this isn't right. We're going to not do this.
Right.
And Starfleet is always corrupt.
I agree. There's a difference, though, between corruption and, like, deciding to do, a lot of times that's the Starfleet's breaking their tenets to do something that they find expedient or whatever. It is rare in Star Trek to see someone just look at a humanoid and go, like, they're weird or gross.
I don't think that's true, though.
I think that is true.
No, I don't think that's true at all. If you look back at TNG, first episode, Riker's making cracks about getting eaten by a Ferengi. They're constantly shitting on the Ferengi. The
Ferengi are an exception. I think the Ferengi, and that's what's so interesting, is the Ferengi are capitalists.
TNG, DS9, they're constantly making cracks about Klingons.
Right. Well, no, that's the thing. Klingons, though, are all the way back to the original series, they were enemies, and they have slowly been becoming friends. They were the other. And that's why I think that, like, Star Trek 6 is so important. It's that moment when they make that change where they're no longer the other. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, like, our main crew learn to deal with their own racism,
Right. Which is great.
It's a great scene. And I don't think that Star Trek never has the other, but most of the time the other that they have is based on something more than, like, physical appearance or whatever. And I will say that Ferengi, for instance, like, I guess it does make sense in this situation, because the Ferengi are one of the ones that they do seem to have a problem with, because they're capitalists and they don't trust them. They're thieves, which is very problematic on its own way. I like that the show turned that trope on its head, but the fact that Boimler is still that uninformed or willing to believe the sort of stereotypes about Ferengi was a little troubling to me.
Well, it's also interesting because it's a really old stereotype, because they stopped being that at the end of DS9. Spoilers.
Did they?
Their whole government changed.
Oh, see, I don't even remember.
I'm sure there are plenty of Ferengi who are still operating under the old system, but
right, sure.
Didn't Rom become Nagus?
I think he did, but I don't remember. Yeah, and I think he started being less capitalistic. Anyway, I feel like we have gone pretty far afield. I thought this episode was very funny.
See, I don't think it's far afield, though. It's still supposed to be Star Trek.
Oh, for sure.
And they're still bringing up interesting, conversations, which I think is what Star Trek is really about.
I wasn't meaning to be critical. I was just trying to get back to kind of like getting back to the show and kind of wrapping up, because we have now talked longer than the episode, as we want to do.
That's our brand. There are memes about podcasts like us. I'm serious. There are. I'll send them to you.
I'm sure. I'm certain there are. Oh man, I always try to keep things. I think that's generally a good rule. About as long as the episode should be about your limit, but we almost never stick to it in any capacity.
No. I do want to say, I think it says something about who Rutherford is and how. It says something about his own level of self-esteem, that he likes a girl, so he's willing to, like, change his entire career path.
It does. It does say something about self-esteem, but it also says something about him that he tried, and when it didn't work, he immediately was like, no, I gotta be true to myself. Like he thought he could find another thing that he cared about, and when he didn't, he was like, I'm sorry, no, I can't do that for you. I'm sorry. My happiness is more important. So it was nice that it ended there.
Yeah, and it was nice for her because I feel like I would have liked her less if he had really, if she had a problem with that, you know?
Oh, for sure. And she reveals that she didn't think that was why he was doing it. She's like, oh,
which is great.
It's not like you were doing that for me. He's like, yeah, no, of course not.
Yeah. It was overall a very feel-good episode for the most part.
Yeah, man, I agree. Well, I'm excited for next week.
Yeah, I really hope they go further into, because, you know, being a second contact vessel, not being the flagship of the Federation, not being like the best of the best, you know, they could definitely delve into more deconstruction of Starfleet, deconstruction of the bureaucracy of the Federation, which Starfleet or Star Trek has always, you know, poked fun at the bureaucratic elements of Starfleet. Yeah.
I really do hope that it gets there, and I hope it gets to the place where it can actually like Rick and Morty, not to only compare to that. I know it's going to be its own thing, but I do want it to do the thing that Rick and Morty does well, which is challenge the tropes and really, you know, get into the nuts and bolts of what makes Star Trek, and really deconstruct those, because I'd like to see it.
Yep,
Sweet.
Me too.
Well, guys, love you. Thank you for hanging out on the Star Trek Universe podcast. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Hit us up at strandedpanda.com for all the things. We got all the podcasts over there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got anything you want to plug before I throw my plug out there?
DC on Screen, guys. If you're a DC fan, DC Fandom is happening on the 22nd. So, check out DC on Screen, because we're going to be talking all about all the news that comes out of that.
Yeah, dude.
Stuff has already started dropping. And me and my wife are still doing Breaking Bond. We're, you know, watching all of the James Bond movies and having a lot of fun talking about that. We're right in the middle of Roger Moore's era, making our way to whatever the hell that new one's called.
I have no idea what the new one's called, actually.
Die Another Day, I think.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
The last Craig movie.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm excited about it. For me, I got the little plug. We're going to be, I have an album, a double album that if you've been following along with this podcast, I wrote a double album about Star Trek. I'm really excited about it. It's 22 songs in total, and it's just a lot of music, and it's all based on Star Trek. But it's to me, it's just good music with kind of heart and passion behind it. And if you like that kind of stuff, check it out. You can go to strandedpanda.com/new album, and you can see, click through to the Indiegogo campaign. I'm trying to raise enough money to be able to, pay for this album, basically. And be able to finish it and produce it and all that stuff. And you can get CDs and t-shirts, and the t-shirt is super badass. Yeah. All right. Well, Jolan True.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.